Watch this satisfying backhand attack. Most amateurs panic when a fast, long ball comes to their backhand. This one adjustment changes everything. A lot of players dread fast, long balls to the backhand. Today, I want to show you how to handle them with one key principle. Let me start with a question. When a long ball comes at you, is it better to make contact on the rising phase, at the peak, or in the early falling phase? This timing point matters enormously for your receive. Today we're covering two key aspects of the backhand loop against long balls. Get these right, and your backhand loop against long balls will break through. It's incredibly useful. After just 10 minutes of practice, you'll see that most players default to contacting the ball in the early falling phase. Let me demonstrate. My partner feeds me a long ball, watch where I make contact. I'm catching it right here, in the early falling phase. Now let's compare. Watch what happens when I switch to the rising phase instead. My partner sends another one. Notice the difference in timing, and how much easier the stroke feels when I take it early. See, the difference is obvious. Which timing point felt more effortless? Most of you can sense it, the rising phase just flows more naturally. The rising phase lets you borrow the incoming energy. The early falling phase creates two problems. First, you have to wait for the ball to drop. If I'm standing at a mid-close position, that falling ball jams me, it pushes into my body. So I'd have to back up just to find that falling phase. But if I stand far back, what happens when my opponent drops a short ball? I'm stranded. My position is too deep and I can't cover the table. You'll lose points on the serve and receive game because your starting position is wrong. That makes everything harder. So here's the thing, watch this. The faster my partner's ball comes, the easier it actually gets for me on the rising phase. Don't fear the speed. On the rising phase, the incoming ball gives you its energy, you add spin. If the ball has no pace, you'd have to step forward and chase it. On the falling phase, you wait, then still have to move forward. That's so much harder because you're out of position. So I take nearly every one of these balls on the rise. Watch, right at the bounce, the moment it jumps, I loop. I'm borrowing the opponent's force. This is the easiest, most stable way to handle a long ball. It's completely different from a serve and attack sequence. Some players always wait, wanting to wind up a big swing. But if your opponent's serve has a vicious second bounce, fast and deep, and it keeps jamming you, you end up in a very passive position. When you catch the rising phase, it doesn't matter how much the ball kicks afterward. You've already borrowed the force, the opponent can't jam you. Try it yourself. No single timing is universally correct, but experiment with the rising phase and see if it feels better. That's the first key point. On the receive, borrow the incoming force. Borrow it to loop, borrow it to press, borrow it to flick, borrow it to push. Don't add a big backswing of your own. Now, second point. When the incoming ball is very spinny, should your stroke get bigger or smaller? Most players instinctively make the stroke smaller. But in a real match, watch what happens against a heavy backspin serve. You see players desperately enlarging their swing, lifting the racket upward, trying to haul the ball over the net. Sound familiar? It's extremely common in amateur play. The heavier the spin, the bigger they swing. That's actually a misconception. Next, my partner sends me a very heavy backspin ball. Watch, I push it back first so you can see just how much spin is on it. Feel that rotation. Now watch me loop it. Notice I use a compact stroke, meeting the ball with good racket face contact. Why does a big swing make it so hard to grip the ball? Think about it. A large motion spreads the friction across too long an arc. The contact becomes unfocused. The rubber never truly grabs the ball at the critical instant.
来动点脚，
That's why the ball dumps into the net.
职业素养对。
养成习惯了。
越大动作，为什么大动作容易摩擦不住？大家打到公屏上来，我们探讨一下这个。
对，咱们探讨一下这个我感觉非常值得探讨。
对。
Now here's the principle. A heavy backspin ball drops fast, it's pulling downward off your racket face. Let's say that downward force acts in roughly 3/10 of a second. But a big swing, traveling all the way from low to high, might take 7/10 of a second to complete. See the mismatch? The ball needs to be lifted in that tiny window, but your stroke is still mid-journey. By the time your racket reaches the contact zone, the ball has already fallen away. A compact stroke can match that short window. Small motion, fast acceleration, you catch the ball before it escapes.
我问大家一个问题，那我应该怎么办呢？
对，就是它这个下坠的力太快了。如果你动作太大呢，你这个动作需要的时长比较快，比较长。比如说0.3
That timing gap, 3/10 versus 7/10, means the ball slips off your rubber before your stroke finishes. The remaining swing is wasted motion. The ball is already gone. That's exactly why a bigger swing leads to more net balls. The larger the stroke, the less concentrated your contact, and the longer the friction needs to build. You simply can't grip the spin in time. Then put simply, you're not gripping the ball with friction. The heavier the backspin, the faster the ball drops. It gets dense, heavy, not floaty at all. And the bigger your stroke, the longer it takes to travel from start to finish. That means your swing frequency is too slow, it can't cancel out the spin. But if I keep the motion compact, I solve the problem. I concentrate that entire 0.3-second window into one quick burst, and that's exactly enough to break through the rotation.
对不对？但是我动作幅度不是很大，是不是就可以解决这个问题了？
对呀，我把这个0.3秒作用到这一下了，就是一下给它完成了以后，它正好就能破解这个球的旋转。
When you friction through the backspin and convert it to topspin, you've broken the spin. Match your stroke duration to the ball's drop window. If I finish in 3/10 of a second, I catch it perfectly. 6/10, I lose grip and it dumps into the net. A full second, it falls away completely. After that, now let me show you an example. On a serve and attack sequence, my partner pushes one back and watch how I loop it, compact, driving forward. I'm punching through the ball, not sweeping. Watch the stroke size here, small. I keep telling my partner the same thing. The moment that upper arm lifts too high, the whole framework gets awkward. Keep it compact. Watch this one, the ball barely clears the net, skimming right over. That's control. Stop using the upper arm. Stop building a big frame around the stroke. The larger the motion, the easier it is to miss. Now let me show the difference. I'll open up the swing slightly. This is a serve and attack loop. See the size. Now watch me use that same compact action on a pushed ball instead. My partner pushes it back, and there, clean. But I see this problem constantly when coaching younger players. They can loop fine off their own serve setup, but the moment they switch to receiving, they struggle.
我最近带小孩子也存在这个问题，发巧能拉上，接发球就拉。They can loop off their own serve but can't handle the receive, and the reason is you need to switch modes between those two situations. A pushed ball doesn't travel as fast or as deep. Even a hard push is shorter than a long serve second bounce. So on a serve and attack, you loop at the high point, you drive up and punch through the ball. But on a receive, you borrow the incoming energy, grip the ball with friction, and push forward into it. These are two completely different concepts. If you take your serve attack stroke and drop it into a receive situation, you get jammed. The opponent's whole purpose with a fast long ball is to pin you down with speed and spin. So remember, serve and attack means loop at the peak, driving upward. Receive means compact friction, redirecting forward. Drill both modes until switching between them becomes automatic. That's what transforms your game against deep, spinny balls.
这个落点的球一定要去解决，要不
这个得解决啊，
盯死你这个点。
这个点就容易发。